Okay, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Is the first question. Got this. That's why we're starting a little early. And LaFord girl, I see you there. Can you hear me okay? You are first. Let me see if it. Oh, yeah. I sound good. All right. Yeah, I sound pretty good. Okay, great. I'm glad this setup works. If you're wondering why I'm doing this, being that I'm going to be appearing on this game show this weekend with John Lorden and others, he has instructed me that he prefers for the quality of the program that I use a microphone instead of or a microphone like a regular microphone, like right here. In contrast to the microphone just off the computer, which is what I usually do. Just because I realized some of you were saying, "Well, this is sounds a lot better, Ed." Well, I know it does, but from a standpoint of interaction and looking at the camera and facing all of you and everything, being a little bit more presentable. This makes it a little more difficult. But if that's what he needs for his production for Saturday, then I will, of course, accommodate him. The other thing I'm going to have to do is get some headphones that are not Bluetooth. His instruction for that is that LaFord that could hurt your neck. Well, we'll see, LaFord. We'll see. I might eventually have to just take it off and speak like this, but I needed to try this out. And so that's what we're going to do. So, we're going to mess around with this a little bit. And I just wanted to see how this was, going to sound. And I guess it's sounding pretty good. This is the setup that I use for recording all the episodes, but I don't use this computer. I use my MacBook, which is over here to the left. And because it has GarageBand on it. Thanks, Kelly. Hello, LaFord, Concha, Jill, Indy, Angela, LaFord, Christine, Kelly, thank you. Yeah, I realize it sounds better. There's no doubt about that. As long as it's set up correctly, it certainly sounds better. But like I said, from a presentation standpoint, it's not quite as good. But I will do. Hello, Jasmine. I will do what he needs. And what I was going to say about the headphones is that all I have are Bluetooth headphones, headphones that only work through Bluetooth. I do not have any that actually with a cord that plugs into a computer. I'm just finding that out now within the last couple hours. So I have to get some headphones like that before Saturday as well. But I'm sure, I'll get it done for sure. That shouldn't be any problem. But so this is what's going on. Indy says big microphone reminds me of old time radio. I guess so, Indy. This is what I use. This microphone is about 15 years old. And I don't know if you can see this, but I use the old school type of microphone connection there. I do not use USB. I mean, eventually it's USB, but I go from there into what they call a pre-mobile unit and then into the computer. So that's how I do that. And I've been using that setup for many, many, many years. It's a little more old school than I think a lot of podcasters use today. I think that a lot of them just use a microphone that is with USB and goes directly into the computer. When I got this, I don't even know if those microphones were a thing back when I got this microphone. So I'm sure that my setup is a little bit older than most. I'm going to say that. So that's what's going on. I hope everybody's doing well. We got in here a little bit early, but now that it's 9:00, we can officially start the show. Welcome. This is Unfound Live for May 6th, 2020. Just want to remind all of you, as you are watching this tonight, please do not forget to like this video by hitting the little thumbs up button, depending on your device and your phone, your computer, your tablet, however you listen to the program. Do not forget to hit the thumbs up and like this video so it can raise the visibility of it for later. Once the video is done, then my assistant Natasha will tag it so it can appear in searches if for whatever we are going to be talking about, and we're going to be talking about quite a bit tonight. It's been beautiful here. As I've been telling some people, this is the kind of weather that the reason people move to the Gulf Coast of Florida. This kind of weather. It's just been absolutely beautiful. Now, on a down note, there seems to be something going on with my air conditioning in here. And this happened once last year as well, where it seems like the air conditioning just goes stupid and won't turn on. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the compressor is finally fried or something. I don't know. But right now I have no air conditioning, and it's been like this since about, 2:00 today. And I can tell it's not too bad in here. It's May. It's no big deal. But the last time it kind of just fixed itself somehow. So we'll just have to see what happens. I just don't know right at this second. But the lights are on, but nobody's home, and it just won't kick on for whatever reason. And I noticed it, like I said earlier today. Right now, the thermostat in here says it's about 78 degrees, and it'll probably keep going down as the night progresses. I may open up the windows and get some breeze going or anything, and we'll sort it out tomorrow. So better happen now than in July. Jill says, have you originally changed your filter before you turned it on? The AC, that is. Jill, maybe I am due for a filter change. I could probably, being that I'm going to go out tomorrow to get headphones, I could probably get a couple new filters. How old is this filter? I'm going to say this filter has been in there since, I don't know. I'm going to probably, all of you are going to probably go, what? This filter's probably been in there since last August. I don't even know. I don't know if that's bad. I don't know if that's good. I don't know how often I'm supposed to change them out. I really don't know. But I just don't know. So we'll have to see. It, like I said, better it happen now than in July, or better it happen, later in the day like it did today, than happen at like 9 a.m. So we'll just have to see. Heather says that's bad. Thank you, Heather. So what else is going on? But it's been beautiful here. And of course, already mentioned, maybe I'll mention it again, on Saturday, I guess night, at least on the East Coast, I will be competing in a benefit charity benefit game show on the Lorden Arts channel. I see that he already has put a reminder up. The video, like the link to the video and everything, is already posted, and you can go on there to remind yourself, and it'll send you like an email or send you some sort of reminder that it's starting. I am tuning in at like 8:30 because we'll get sorted out any technical issues that any of us may have. And then the game show will start at 9. I'm guessing it will go for about an hour. So it's going to be 9 p.m. Eastern. Of course, 6 Pacific. Christine says, my husband does HVAC at least once a year. Jill says 3 months. Run, don't walk to get one. Okay, Jill. Susan, hey, everyone. Kelly, it's so much fun. So I'm excited too, Kelly. I'm excited to be that he asked me to do this, and I'll be there. Cherie is, I think that is the link to the game show on Saturday night. So if you want to copy what Cherie just posted there, that'll make it real nice and easy for Saturday night. Susan says, I like the girls from Corpus Delecti too. I know I saw that. I guess there's two of them. There'll be four of us. I guess that podcast has two hosts, Susan. It seems like you know that program. I do not. And then also Aaron from Generation Y will be competing. I know Justin from Generation Y. I do not know Aaron, so that should be neat. So I'm guessing there will be four of us, and we'll be competing. If you've watched any of the prior episodes of this game show, it's just don't know which way it's going to go. I think you have to pick some percentages with people and certain percentages of people's opinions on things. I guess kind of like Family Feud or going way back to Card Sharks, that game show from the 70s and 80s. It's kind of like that. I saw one where they have to write jokes, using particular subjects or topics and some other things. So we'll see, we'll see what happens. And I think there was another one where you had to make up a fake definition for a word, which reminds me of a Balderdash. I don't know if any of you have ever played the board game Balderdash, which is that kind of game where you have to make up the definitions of words. And that's one of my mother and father's favorite games. I've only played it a few times. So I see some similarities to some other types of games that I've played or have seen on game shows. So we'll see what happens. I'm a competitive guy. So we'll see how it goes. Christine says, I forgot that you're in Florida. Yeah, I am in Florida, Christine, for sure. Susan's, the girls are very Southern. Okay, Susan. Christine says 3 months sounds right. LaFord says loved Card Sharks. Me too. Kelly says there's audience participation too. That's right. There is. And so I'm hoping for all of you who do watch that you will participate. Hello, Ann. How are you? Sheree says I saw one where they wrote raps. Well, we'll see if maybe I'll just bring out my inner Eminem and everything, or inner Beastie Boys, and everything should be fine. Kathy, yep, played Balderdash years ago. Christine, thank you, Christine, for wishing me good luck. I appreciate that. So I'm looking forward to that. I have an anticipation. Probably I'm going to be a little nervous. So we'll see how I handle that. But we can't. Also, there's that. And that's, once again, that starts at 9 p.m. Eastern on Saturday night on the Lorden Arts channel, otherwise known, I think, that most people know John Lorden for his show Brain Scratch. So I hope you will all join in Saturday night if you're not doing something else. What's coming up more directly is tomorrow I will be doing my interview with Dr. Grace Telesco from Nova Southeastern University. And that will be on Facebook Live on the Fischler, let me see if I get this right, College of Education and School of Criminal Justice page on Facebook, a Facebook Live show. We will be using Zoom. And I really haven't decided yet whether I'm going to use this microphone for that interview or not. I may just do it the way you saw for the 8-minute preview. And because I think the audio for that came out just fine. And it's just the two of us talking. So I don't think that will be as big a deal. Whereas I think with John and wanting a microphone and headphones is because there's possibility of a lot of overlapping of talking, and everybody's in different locations. And, you might get some feedback and things like that. So I understand that. But tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, I will be on with Dr. Grace Telesco. I'm really looking forward to that. And there's going to be 3 particular topics that we are going to be covering. We're going to be talking about just about missing persons and disappearances in general. Then we will be talking about the disappearance of Dorian Myers specifically. I'll be talking about some of the facts from her disappearance, and I'll have to type something up, I'm sure, before I have them as notes for that discussion. And then also, I'm not saying finally, I don't know what order we'll do them, but then also we will be talking about coordinating with families, talking to families, working with families from both an investigation standpoint and from an emotional standpoint. And you should know that Dr. Telesco, she may be an academic now, but she is former NYPD, so she is hardcore law enforcement. And she was with the NYPD when 9/11 happened. So I'm sure that she will be talking about that, her experiences with people who are suffering grief and experiencing that day. We'll probably talk about that at least a little bit. And she will be sharing some of her experiences, I'm sure, with talking to families, not just with about 9/11, but murders, other situations. And then I will be talking about my experience talking with families regarding missing persons cases in general, which is what I've been doing for the last 3.5 years. She says that the interview is going to go an hour. I am sure it will go very quickly. Heather says inner M&M would work, says Marcy, but Heather says, I'm certain you do not have an inner M&M. Heather, if you only knew. Cherie, nervous. Oh, really? I think a few of your assistants can relate. Yeah, we'll get into that, Cherie, before this night is over. Heather's laughing. Everybody's laughing at Heather. Jokey on Ed. I can take it. But, we're hoping with Dr. Telesco that, and she's brought this up, that maybe we make this a monthly thing. We pick maybe different topics every month, maybe a different disappearance every month. And we would certainly, I think, like to get to the point once all this virus stuff is done to actually do this in person. And of course, we were supposed to do the interview in person way back on, what was it? Was it April 2nd or April 9th? I think it was April 2nd is what I believe it was. So then, but of course that didn't happen because of the virus. But I'm hoping once this all passes over, how long it's going to take, that we, we can actually get together in person. Hello, Carlene, Valerie, Laura, Lily. Good to see all of you. Thank you for tuning in this evening. You're probably saying, what's up with that microphone? Well, I'm just kind of experimenting with this during the live show tonight because I'm going to have to use this setup on Saturday, and I'm sure before Saturday evening gets here for the game show, I will have reconfigured this somehow so I can more easily look at the camera and do everything that I'm supposed to do. But we just wanted to see if this was going to work tonight. So what better way than to use all of you as guinea pigs? But I guess I've been told that it sounds very good. I'm sure it sounds better than me just using the microphone from the laptop. I'm sure that's the case. So there's that. Let me just go over here. But once again, just to go through that again, tomorrow evening, 6 p.m. Eastern, on the Nova Southeastern University's Fischler, once again, College of Education and School of Criminal Justice, Dr. Grace Telesco will be interviewing me on there, and it's going to be a Facebook live show on their page, not on the Unfound page, not on YouTube, not on Instagram, but on their page. It's a public page. It's not a group. It's a public page. And so please be looking for that. I'm guessing you'll have to go. It'll be playing if you get there early. I'm sure there'll be some sort of link or something where All you'll have to do is click on it at the appropriate time, and it will play, or it might play automatically. I'm kind of forgetting how that used to work when we used to do this show on Facebook. But I'm sure if you get to the Fischler College of Education and School of Criminal Justice page around 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, I'm pretty sure you'll figure it out. And we'll be using Zoom, but it will be playing over Facebook. And then on Saturday, once again, 9 p.m. Eastern, on the Lord and Arts channel on YouTube, right here where you are now, I will be participating with the two of the hosts from Corpus Delicti, and then Aaron from Generation Y in a game show that John Lorden has been hosting, I'm guessing, for about 6 weeks now or something. And it's for charity. It's for Feeding America. So I hope if you're watching that you will consider contributing to that cause. It's not just a game show, as somebody pointed out. It is also, there's some audience participation involved as well. So I hope you have fun with that. Elizabeth, what's going on? And yeah, Cherie is now posting. You can all see it there. The Facebook page, facebook.com/Fischler EDU. That is the page where I will be appearing tomorrow evening. And if you look further up the chat, you will find where Cherie has posted the link to the game show for Saturday night. Let's talk about some other things. Of course, last Friday we did an in memoriam for Austin Pivo. We then talked about it, his disappearance, kind of looking back, hindsight 2020 type of stuff in the think tank on Sunday evening. The poll that I'd put out last Friday was, how surprised are you by the resolution to this disappearance? The reason I thought that was an important question is because my perception is a lot of people thought that Clyde, the guy who'd pulled a knife on Austin the night before, did something to Austin, caused his disappearance. That makes a lot of sense. And so I asked, how surprised were all of you that, hello, Full Metal, how surprised were you that it ended up, of course, being 3 other men? And a majority of you said not surprised at all, not surprised. And, it's funny. It's one of those things where I wonder if all of you are, some of you are actually telling the truth, or, after the fact, you want to seem like the smart person or something. I have to say that I am surprised. I think I left 4 choices there. Not surprised, somewhat surprised, a bit surprised, and very surprised. And not surprised was the most common choice. So there's that. I think in the think tank, I think some of the people in the think tank thought that thought that there was a possibility that the coworkers and his boss had something to do with this disappearance. But I think a lot of other people in the think tank were thinking that Clyde had something to do with it. So we threw around, once again, kind of a hindsight 2020. Should we have taken this more seriously or that more seriously? And that's exactly what I wrote about in the for the blog for Patreon this week. It wasn't as long as usual because it's, I've already written about Austin Pivo's disappearance once. But what I did was I wrote about, how, the reason that I kind of looked the other way regarding how Austin wasn't seen that day walking, and how the phone call that they said he made seemed kind of suspicious, and why although those things were, caught my ear, certainly, that it wasn't enough to push me into the group of people who thought something happened in the house. So I wrote about that. And because in the original blog on Patreon, once again, patreon.com/Unfound podcast, and we had some new people come on as Patreon members this past week. And I really need to thank all of them, especially in these times where I know a lot of people are hurting for money, losing jobs, getting their hours cut back, etc. So I appreciate them joining on at this time. But, in the original blog that I wrote for Austin going back to last summer, I had my conclusion, my decision was that Clyde did have something to do with his disappearance. Of course, I was wrong. Yet there still are some unanswered questions, and we brought these up during the think tank. Is that could there still be some connection between Clyde and these three guys? Could there be? He's not been charged with anything, but I think that we're still very open-minded to that. I also think that the other reason, Austin gets a knife pulled on him the night before he goes missing, and then the next day, a totally different group of people pull a knife on him and stab him to death. And so I had to ask the think tank the question: could there have been something going on? Were people did Austin do something, and people were after him? And that's once again a question I don't know the answer to. I've not had a chance to talk to his mother, Susan, since the episode came out or since the think tank happened on Sunday. But I think that I need to ask her those questions and see if she has any insight into any of it, and to find out if these three guys who have been charged, have what kind of defense? What is going to be the defense that they're going to use? Are they going to say it was self-defense? Are they going to say that they didn't do it? I mean, just totally say we didn't have anything to do with it. We just don't know right now. Just don't know. But we're going to know soon, because two of the trials are coming up in June. But the one guy, there's no trial date as of yet. Which, once again, as I think we talked about in the think tank, and I think I might have even written it in the blog, is how is it that these guys are going to trial so quickly, whereas Carlos Rodriguez, the presumed murderer of Zoe Campos, it's a year and a half later, and to my knowledge, there's still no trial date. So I don't know. I really don't know what's going on there. Once again, Cherie's posting the Patreon link, patreon.com/unfound podcast. For $2 a month, if you get in there, you will get a free ebook and have access to all of the blogs that I've written on all of the cases Unfound has covered since August of 2017. If you get into the $5 a month level, you still get access to the blogs, but then you also have the opportunity to get a few more of the ebooks that I will send to you with a private message in each of them. If you step up to the $12 a month level, you get all the blogs, you get some more ebooks, and you have access to the think tank that we do every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. And not only do you get access to that think tank, starting from when you sign up, but you have access to all of the think tanks that have ever been done since the beginning, because all of the links are in there on Patreon for people who subscribe at the $12 a month level or higher. So you'll have all these blogs. It's a lot of reading. What would it be? 2017 to 2019. I mean, that's like 100 weeks plus about another, it's like 160 blog, not 160. About 130 blogs or something like that. You could read a lot of writing by myself, my insight into all these disappearances that you automatically get. And then you automatically get access to a lot of videos for these think tanks where I talk with other think tank members about these cases. And I think we started that think tank somewhere towards the beginning of 2019, it seems. Maybe Cherie has a better recollection of that. But I know it's been going on for at least a year. So you'd have access to at least 52 think tanks videos that you can watch. So that's a lot. And then if you step up to the $20 a month level, then you start getting into all of the stuff I've already talked about. And then I will start sending you some printed editions of Unfound's books with me signing them. And I really do have to get on there. There's just been so many things going on with Unfound. Thank you, Angela. I should have mentioned that. Love the think tank. Angela's saying $1.99. Thank you, Angela. Yeah, and I should talk about that right now, maybe while everybody's here. Being that, hello, Shanna. being that we are now monetized on YouTube, you can now contribute to the program as you're watching this live show. It's called the Super Chat, and you can see there where Angela has taken part in the Super Chat, and I appreciate that. And that's something new once again because of Unfound now being monetized, where the videos, even though we're not I mean, I think Natasha told me recently that we've had 1.7 million views, which sounds like a lot, but I'm thinking compared to many other YouTube channels, that's not that many, but I'm happy with it. And I'm just concerned, my concern is always that we're doing something that's very high quality. I'm not so concerned about the views. Views certainly mean something, but I just worry about the quality. And if you do high quality material, then I believe that eventually, people will find it anyway. So, thank you, Angela, for the super chat. And all you have to do is hit the little dollar sign up in the right hand corner. That's where it is on my screen to contribute. Let's move on to some other things. Oh, as I was saying with the books, we just got into so many, some other things. All of the transcriptions for the next book are done. I just have to put it all together. That's what's going on right now. Where do I want to go next? Let's talk about this. I had posted a video. Now let's take a question. I've been going for almost a half hour here. Let's take some questions. First question, actually, she asked me 2 questions today, and I'm going to answer both of them. First, Marcy asked me, have I ever gotten threatened? The answer is yes, Marcy, and for all of you watching, yes, I have gotten threatened. I wouldn't say it was to the point that somebody said, I'm going to come down there to Florida and kill you or anything like that. I mean, hey, we use a lot of names on the program. Thank you, Shanna. Oh, you're very kind. Shanna. Thank you. Although we use names on the program, and a lot of people don't like it. That's just the way it is. And we do not go after people. We just talk about what the guest has heard. We talk about what the guest has seen. We talk about what the guest has read and been told by the police. And that's what we do. And if that causes some certain people to look guilty or look suspicious or something, I don't know what we can do about that. I really don't. And that's how I handle these things. In all of these disappearances that we've ever covered, I personally am not trying to go after anybody. All I'm doing is asking the questions. I'm not the person who knows the most about these disappearances. The guest is the person who knows the most. That's why they're on the program, so they can tell their side of the story and, of course, talk about, when family members are on, talk about the emotional impact, which I also think is very important. So when it comes to the idea of me being threatened, it's more been, it's more along the lines of, you better never come to our area. It's stuff like that. And you better watch out for yourself. It's never been something as blatant as, I'm coming to Florida and I'm going to do such and such to you. That's never happened. But of course, the one that sticks out to me the most was the James Walker disappearance, which was very early on in Unfound's existence. And the son of a guy that was with James Walker that day, he contacted me and said a lot of nasty things. And then I managed to calm him down, and we had a rational conversation for a little while. And then he went nuts again, and that's when he started saying some things. And then I had to block him. So I have. That's just the one that off the top of my head comes to me first. And so I have, and that's why I've talked about, in fact, I just talked about it recently. I think on the Chris Sanders episode, I talked about, I'd asked his mother if he carried a gun. And then as an example, I used the example of me carrying my gun that I take with me everywhere. In fact, I take a couple different guns with me everywhere. But the one that is usually mainly on me is my Glock 19 that I got a little over beginning of 2016. And that is the gun that goes with me everywhere. Hello, Tanya. Good to see you tonight. Thank you for tuning in. So because of that, those things, yes, I do carry a gun with me everywhere. That's just what I do. I have a license to do that in Florida, and the license is reciprocal in most of the other states. Some states it's not. California, New York, Illinois, it's not. But in most other states, it is. And so, like when I go to Pennsylvania, that goes with me there. So I have been. I think that's part of the job that, in my position, I would never ask any of my assistants to be put in that position. That's why, I'm the one that asks, the tough questions. They do research for me. They have a lot of different roles in putting Unfound together. In fact, you're going to hear about that this Friday. But for the purposes of any sort of retribution or people getting ticked off, I hope that all of that is just directed at me. I think that's the way it should be. So I don't know what I can do about it. And the old saying goes, if you're getting flack, that means that you're over the target. And so, it's just the way I look at it. If I was doing this program and wasn't getting any people ticked off, then I probably wouldn't be doing a very high quality show. As I've said, and although I haven't said this for a while, I think my attitude in doing the program and asking the questions that I do is that I want those people who cause these disappearances to be afraid. I want them to live in fear. I do. That is the goal. And if they aren't feeling that way, then I probably don't feel like I'm probably doing my job very well. That's just part of, what goes on. Hello, Sue. Good to see you. Once again, for anybody that's watching right now, please hit the like button for this video. That's very important to it getting noticed on YouTube. Cherie has posted, if you're on Facebook and not part of the group, yet, it's facebook.com/groups/ what is that? I think it's, let me see what it says here. Unfound Podcast. So facebook.com/groups/ Unfound Podcast. What's probably easier to do is just go to Facebook and do a search for Unfound Discussion Group, and it'll just take you right to it. And then all you have to do is ask to be let in, which we of course will do. Sue is saying, been a while, missed you guys. Yeah, Sue, I recognize your name, and I do recognize that you haven't been in recently. So, thanks for tuning in. Shanna says, most welcome. I love your podcast and appreciate all the amazing, kind of got cut off there, Shanna, but you're welcome. Well, you're very kind, Shanna. Thank you. So that's the question that Marcy asked. Have I ever been threatened? Anything like that? And the answer is yes, but I don't want to take it too far, to say that, it's been something very, very, very explicit. It's just been more like, you better never come to this area or stuff like that. Shanna continues all the amazing hard work you do for these poor families. Thank you, Shanna. I don't do it alone. Next topic that I want to cover. This was something, your hair looks groovy. Thanks, Sue. I brought this up. You're going to hear this on Friday. And if you don't know, this Friday you're going to get to hear from all but one of my assistants. I interviewed all of them these past couple days, and you're going to hear them this Friday. That's why this episode is being called the team episode. But in my discussion with Natasha, who is the newest assistant, she of course, let me type something in here real quick. She is the newest assistant, and she of course takes care of the YouTube channel in that posting videos, posting previews, and keeping track of the analytics and everything. And she also works on the website. Well, you know, she's very knowledgeable about what things are going on in that area of technology. And during our discussion, I had brought up if she realized that maybe 5 to 7 years ago, podcasting almost was brought to a screeching halt, and said she didn't know about that. And I said it's totally true. And so hold on one second. I want to make sure I get this. I want to make sure I get the name of this company correct. It was a patent troll. I should have written this down, but I didn't. Had to do with Adam Carolla. Does any of that ring a bell for you at all? Let me see here. Hold on one second if you could. I should have written this down. Patent troll podcasting. I'm having to do something here on Google. Come on now. You'd think this would be easy to find, and now I can't find it when the chips are down. Oh, that's why I can't find it. Maybe. Personal Audio LLC. Have any of you ever heard of it? Personal Audio LLC. And so I was talking to Shannon. You'll hear our discussion during my interview with her. She was not aware of that. And I thought, well, you know, it's something probably that I should talk about during the live show. And I'm going to do that very quickly. If you don't know, back in like the 2000s into the early 2010, 2011, there was a company called Personal Audio LLC, and they're from Texas. And what they started doing is they claimed that they invented podcasting, that they came up with the technology. And because of that, they started suing people for podcasting. And really, they were doing is they were trying to get a settlement, or at least some sort of licensing arrangement with these podcasts, so they could make money off of them. And what happened was, and if you think this is some sort of, you know, crazy thing, Personal Audio LLC was successful for quite a while. They got like $8 million from Apple and several other companies who you would recognize as being, you know, in podcasting. Well, what happened was that they went after the Adam Carolla show, which is one of the most popular podcasts out there, along with, I think, Joe Rogan has a very popular podcast. But they went after Adam Carolla, who I think a lot of you know, used to be on The Man Show, and he's done a lot of different things. But he's really good friends with Jimmy Kimmel. And they tried to sue him. Well, he decided he was going to fight back. And he ended up raising like 400 some thousand dollars to in defense of this, and they went to court, and Adam Carolla ended up winning. And um and what the courts eventually decided, in fact, Personal Audio tried to get like the Supreme Court to listen to the case, and they wouldn't. And the thing is, Personal Audio lost at every stage, from the state stage to the federal stage, to the circuit court stage, etc. And um it's an interesting case, and I don't really know how many podcasters even know about it. But it was a huge deal back in about 2013 when Adam Carolla said, that he wasn't going to just lay down and take it and be taken to court and lose money, because he was doing the show that was popular and he was making money off of it. And he challenged Personal Audio's claim that they invented podcasting. Well, eventually the courts decided as well that Personal Audio did not invent it. And they were called what are known as patent trolls, and you can look that up on Wikipedia or wherever else. But patent trolls are companies; they're kind of like fake companies that they'll, using the law and understanding patent law, they will try to prove that they invented something in the hopes that they don't get taken to court. Instead, they hope that the company or person will just pay them off to go away. And Adam Carolla didn't do that. He said, "Okay, you want to sue me? All right, let's go to court." And he countersued, and Adam Carolla ended up winning. And it's a very, for everybody that does podcasting now in 2020, we certainly have Adam Carolla to thank, whatever you think of him and, the kind of show he does and everything else, but that he was able to, mount a defense, get people to contribute and win in court, certainly made it possible for the podcast boom to happen as it has over the last 5 years, not just in true crime, but, in every sort of genre of podcasting, because my thought is that had he lost that, or if he'd have rolled over a very, popular podcast like he has, then, who knows where it would have ended. Probably Personal Audio LLC would have gone after NPR with Serial, would have gone after Joe Rogan, would have gone after a lot of other very popular true crime or other types of podcasts out there. Who knows what it would have done? And I'm not sure people realize how close it was back like 5, 6, 7 years ago to podcasting really being stunted before it could really grow. And so you should look that up. Look up Personal Audio LLC. Look up Adam Carolla. Look up Patent Troll. You can do that in Google, or you can look it up all on Wikipedia to find out the specifics and find out about Personal Audio and the argument that they were trying to make in court that, of course, did not fly at any level. They didn't win once. So I thought you all might, being that you all do listen to Unfound, and I'm sure you listen to other podcasts, maybe true crime or otherwise, you'd like to know a little bit of that recent history of a huge lawsuit that happened, not that long ago. So I thought you'd like to know about all that. And you will hear me ask Natasha about that in my interview that I did with her, and she didn't know about it. And so I ended up sending her a link to it after we were done. What are some of the things that are being said? Angela says, yay, assistance. I agree. LaFord says, that is going to be a good one. Forgot who has suggested that topic, but good on them. I can tell you exactly who suggested it, LaFord, and it was a member of the think tank, and her name is Tammy. And the reason that came up is, I will tell you that in a second. Let me read this first. Full Metal says, Adam Carolla has a podcast with Dr. Drew that is good. Full Metal, I can remember when Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew were doing a radio show back in the a national radio show in the late 90s called Loveline. And it was crazy. It was just completely crazy. Dr. Drew, of course, everybody knows who he is as well. He's a doctor, but Is he? He's done these reality shows and everything else. I know he's a licensed physician and all of that. But anyway, he would, of course, take the very practical side when one of these people would call in about, having a relationship problem or a sex problem or a dating problem or whatever. And then Adam, of course, would be the total opposite. And it was a fantastic show. And maybe that's what they do now on that. I don't remember. I don't know what kind of podcast. I didn't even know. I thought Adam Carolla was just doing a show by himself, but what do I know? But I just remember it was on late night. And the reason I remember it is because it was right after I lived in Las Vegas. And I think I had already just quit 7-Eleven. And so I was riding around in the truck with my brother Brian a lot. And of course, you have to remember this was been like the year 2000 or something like that. Before Spotify and all that other stuff, before smartphones. And so late night, this show would be on, and my brother and I would listen to it, and we would just laugh and laugh and laugh. So it was just such a crazy show. And so when I think of Adam Carolla, that's what I think of. Cherie says, I remember Loveline, OMG. Full Metal remembers that, remembered Loveline. Ford remembers Loveline. Full Metal, I love Dr. Drew. I think he's really smart. Okay, Full Metal. Yeah, I think that you have to be of a certain age and of a certain, have to have a certain demeanor, maybe to have listened to Loveline back at that time. That show certainly was not for everybody, especially if you're modest or, you know what I'm saying? But I listened to it. My brother and I loved it. It was just so good. It was just so funny. So that's what I think of with Adam Carolla. Shanna says, oh my God, I remember Loveline. So you remember, yeah, those two together, it was so good. Getting two contrasting styles on a show like that, that's what made it so good, because Dr. Drew, of course, he always tries to answer every question, very astutely, very rationally, very logically from the standpoint of a physician, and Adam Carolla answering the same caller from a standpoint of a comedian, as a rabble rouser, etc. It was so good. It's crazy. But what I was going to say is the reason that the assistants are getting interviewed, I think we probably would have done it eventually, but the reason the topic even came up is because I was supposed to do an interview this past Saturday, and the person flaked on me. I'm not going to name what, of course, if you got the newsletter, then you already know I can't help that now, but the newsletter, by the way, came out last Friday. I hope you got it. But I was supposed to do an interview this weekend. Didn't happen. Called the person, left a message, didn't call me back, emailed, didn't email me back. I have no idea. And that's another topic you will hear myself and Emily talk about when you hear my interview that I did with her a couple days ago. You'll hear it this Friday. So when I mentioned that in the think tank, it was Tammy who said, well, you should interview all of your assistants. I said, that's a fantastic idea. So I interviewed Cherie and Emily on Monday, and then I interviewed Carrie, Heather, and Natasha yesterday. And I'm about more than halfway through of putting the episode together. I think they all did great jobs with their interviews. There was no outline or anything. It was just cold interviews. And I think they're all a little nervous about how they sounded. I can assure them that that they all did a fantastic job. They shouldn't be worried at all. DQ's Pineapple says that was a great show. Loveline, it was. You're right. Heather says fantastic idea. Yeah, Heather's not so excited. Heather, I thought you did a great job. I enjoyed talking to you yesterday. Thank you for making the time. But as far as flakes go, they do happen. You'll hear Emily talk about it. And it puts us in a difficult position because Unfound is not a program that stockpiles interviews. It's not like I interview 5 different people in a week and then don't have to worry about interviewing any more people for like a month. That's not the way we do things. I don't like that kind of workflow because, first of all, it starts to feel like it's some sort of conveyor belt, like assembly line or something. And I don't like feeling like that. Second of all, if you're doing interviews like that, you're probably going to be missing a lot of the details. You're probably doing them too quickly. And you may be doing some interviews before you're ready to do them, before some of the information can be better understood. And so we don't do that. So we work on a much tighter schedule at Unfound, where interviews are usually done between like 4 days and 10 days before the interview plays. So it doesn't give you a lot of leeway when somebody flakes. When they say, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. And then when you call them, no. But it happens. It happens probably more than the public knows. Why it happens, I think there's a lot of different reasons. Why did this particular one happen? I have an idea, but I'm not going to air it here. Valerie asks me, Ed, did you ever listen to Coast AM? Valerie, no, I did not. I think that Art Bell was fantastic for radio. I think that the way he was able to do his show and it be so popular, and doing it from Pahrump, Nevada, which I've been to Pahrump, and everything, what was the Kingdom of Nye, right? Nye County, NYE County. That's what he used to call it. But the show's just a little too out there for me, Valerie. I realize many times he covered topics that were much more based on Earth. Let's just put it that way. But it was too hit and miss for me, to get fully engaged. You start talking about aliens and spirits and ghosts and things, and my mind just turns off. So, but I recognize that he did a great show. He was into that stuff. Fine by me. I'm not, but I thought he did a fantastic show. I think he was a very good interviewer. I can certainly respect that. But the subject matter just really was not my type of thing. Heather says, please tell the listeners it's not me howling. I will, Heather. It's going to get it. Don't worry about the dog in the background, Heather. I think for the most part, I think I'm going to be able to edit all that out. Don't worry about it. Apple Jacks, thank you for your consistent work, Apple. We try to do the best we can. Thank you. It's that's very kind of you to contribute during the super chat. Thank you very much. That means a lot. Thank you. DQ says there's a case in my town. DQs, maybe you can maybe you want to contact Cherie about it. We can see what we can do about it. Apple says, you said in one of your shows that someone's Monterey hung up on you. What was the behind the scenes on that? Someone's Monterey hung up on you. I don't know what that means. Apple, Monterey, someone's Monterey. I'm not sure what that means. I'll answer that question if I knew what that word was. Someone's mother. Christine, I miss Art Bell. Yeah, I know he's died some years ago now, Christine, right? And yeah. Valerie, Art Bell was a legend. He is a legend. There's no doubt. I do not take anything away from him as a broadcaster, as an interviewer, anything like that. Once again, just the subject matter, not really my deal. And in addition, I think a lot of the people he had on there were quacks. I think that they were just on there lying. Just outright. Just got on there and just lied. So there you go. Applejack, somebody's mother. That's happened a couple times, Applejacks, but I will tell you the one that comes to mind right off the top of my head. And this is something that I still forget to this day, but this actually happened. The mother that hung up on me was Kim Kessler's mother. The woman who was eventually, who was on the run, who was missing, but actually technically was on the run from law enforcement in Pennsylvania, and she was eventually, of course, caught over in Jacksonville. And has she been convicted of murdering a coworker of hers? I haven't been following that too closely, but what happened, Apple, is that this was during 2018, and I was trying to find disappearances to cover for the Trib in Pittsburgh. And Kim Kessler is from the Pittsburgh area originally. And so I ended up being able to track her mother down and got her on the phone. And it's still one of the most bizarre phone calls I've ever had in Unfound's existence. Maybe in my life. Maybe. In which I was asking her about her daughter and told her who I was and everything. Told her I was working with the Trib in Pittsburgh, and I know she knew, what that newspaper is. And all she could do was be suspicious of me. And then eventually she said something like, I don't really believe who you are, yada, yada, yada. And she hung up on me. So that happened. And then it was like 3 weeks later that Kim Kessler, it was only a couple weeks later that I think Kim Kessler murdered that woman that she was working with in Jacksonville. And then she got caught. So I was talking to her mother, and Kim Kessler had been a missing persons case out of Pennsylvania for about 15 years. And then I talked to her mother, and then not long after that, Kim is caught after she presumably murders this woman at this hair salon. Crazy. Just crazy. So Applejacks, maybe that is what you're thinking of. That's what comes to my mind, first of all. Kim Kessler's mother hung up on me. And now I see why. Looking back at that phone call now, it's about 2 years ago now. My gut tells me that her mother knew exactly where Kim was that whole time that she was on the run. She had a lot of charges against her in Pennsylvania. I think her mother knew exactly where she was, and I think that she thought I was part of law enforcement or something in retrospect. But it's clear to me her mother knew where her daughter was. No doubt in my mind. So, Applejacks, I hope that answers that question about the mother that hung up on me. It was Kim Kessler's mother. Let's answer another question, and this time it's going to come from Ghetto Girl PJ. I'm guessing that's not her real name. Actually, I think I know exactly who she is. I think I know her real name, but we're just going to leave it at that. Ghetto Girl asked me, how do I get parents? How do I get parents to not sugarcoat what when they talk about their children? I think that what she's asking is, how is it that parents who come on the program so willingly talk about their son or daughter's drug problem, or they're into prostitution, or they have criminal charges, etc. How often does it happen that they try to, once again, using her word, sugarcoat it? And, what do I do to get by that? Well, Ghetto Girl PJ, I really don't get by it. Either people are going to speak truthfully about their children or they're not. I explained to them that it's best to speak honestly about them because you don't know within all of that, whatever they were into, what might have led to their disappearance. If you have a daughter and she was into prostitution, if you never talk about her being into that, then you can never talk about, pimp John Smith, who was seen with her on the day of her disappearance. You can't talk about that because why? You can't talk about her prostitution. Well, that's not helpful. And when it comes to guys, whether they were criminals or they were in a gang or something. Well, if you don't want to talk about them being in a gang, well, then I guess we can't talk about how, John Doe was with the head of this gang on the day he disappeared. I guess we can't talk about that then. Well, if we can't talk about then what are we going to talk about? So that's usually the way I put it to them. And as I've said before, there have been situations where people didn't want to do that. And because of that, they couldn't be on the program. I'm not going to be a party. If they want to do that when they speak to other media people, if they want to do that when they put it on their website or on their Facebook page or whatever else, I can't do anything about that. But when it comes to being on Unfound, I'm not going to let my guests snowblind my listeners. We're here to solve cases, which means we have to speak honestly about what was going on in that person's life. If we can't do that, then I don't know how you solve cases by not knowing what a person was into. I don't know how you do that. So I really, it's not like I talk them into it necessarily. It's really just a simple, yes or no. Are you going to do this or aren't you going to do this? If they're not going to do that, then I can't, I don't know what we can do for them. But my opinion is in 95% of the parents who have been on the program, they're very well aware of what their children were into, and they talk about it, and I really don't have to convince them of much. I think that they realize that in talking honestly about their children, that maybe other parents will hear it and be able to keep their children out of that stuff. So I think the parents who are on Unfound, they try to put a very positive, I wouldn't call it a spin, but try to look at the positive side of it. Well, if I'm going to talk about this, then I want to talk about it in a way that hopefully will help some parents out there keep their children off the streets, off of drugs, out of jail. And maybe if kids are hearing it, that they will learn, they shouldn't be doing those things. So I wouldn't say that, I really have to do a lot of hard convincing, but it's also a situation where if I feel that they're going to be hedging on a lot of things, then that's just not going to happen. I think of, this must have been a while ago now, 2.5 years ago, I can remember talking to a mother of a guy that disappeared. And I'd read quite a bit about the disappearance, and there was drugs all over the place in this disappearance. I can't even remember the guy's name now, but in reading just public accounts, and this person was doing drugs, this person was doing drugs, and Charlie Project, it was everywhere. But then she was going to try to convince me, oh, my son would never do anything like that. Meanwhile, everybody around him, had drug charges and everything else. And I said, do you really want to stick to that? Oh, yeah. I just, I just can't get with that. That's just probably, if they're going to hedge on that, then, what else are they, going to try to distort? I don't know. So, that's just the way we do things. Apple says, sounds right regarding the mother. You said it was a crazy story, then you never elaborated. Sounds like that's what you were talking about. Well, I'm sorry I didn't elaborate on it, Apple. It's true, though, that I haven't told that story in a while. Probably. That's a while. In fact, I probably haven't been told that story for a year. So I'm sorry to leave you hanging like that. Christine, I feel they also want to share their sons or daughters' good qualities with the negative. Yeah, and of course we do that. We do that. And as I always say, the reason we talk about drugs and prostitution and everything on the program is because it could be those things that led to the disappearance. It's the only reason we do it. So thank you for the question, Ghetto Girl PG. Real quickly, Unfound is back on Twitter after a debacle that I committed at the beginning of April. It's still the same handle, Unfound Podcast, but the old account has been shut down and I've had to start from scratch again. So if you're on Twitter, you should do a search for Unfound Podcast. You will find it and find it right now. I think we have about 10 followers, which I think when I messed up the other account, we had about 1,500 followers. So it's probably going to take a while to get back to that number, and I'm fine with it. It's my fault. It's my fault. I still say, of course, Twitter took too long for, why they couldn't just figure out that I just made a typo and just let it go. I don't know. I think it's one of those things that really frustrates a lot of people about social media in general. How things, just the slightest mistake can get you banned for weeks. It just makes no sense. So, but the Twitter account is back. And if you're on Twitter, just look for Unfound Podcast and you're going to see it's basically the same thing. I think I've changed the picture and changed the profile, the write-up and everything, but we'll just go back to what we were doing there. And hopefully I won't make any typos again. LaFord says, thank you. You were the one that asked that question, LaFord? Okay. Christine, yeah. Jasmine, yay, it's back. Yes, it's back. Twitter is back, and I hope to use it efficiently. Let's talk about some things that have been in the news. Let's talk about Vanessa Guillen. She is a soldier who disappeared from Fort Hood back last week of April. And so she's been missing, I'm going to guess, for about 10 days. And I think that I told Cherie that, hello, Michelle. I think I told Cherie that I'd be talking about this. At least I wanted to just touch upon it. What do I make of it? Here are the facts that I have. I know no more about this disappearance than anybody else does, or than any of you do. But she was at Fort Hood. She was last seen in the parking lot at the base at 1 p.m. It says that her ID, her wallet, her car keys, and the key to her room on the base were left behind. I'm guessing that means then that her phone has not been found. I'm guessing that if it was left behind, they would have noted it in the news articles. And so, what do I make of this? Well, first of all, there's not a lot of information to go on. I'm sure there are we have tons and tons of more information that is than what has been put in the public articles so far. And you also have to remember that I believe there are people working on this, particularly people from the military who are, trying to figure out what happened to her, especially since she was last seen on the base. So we don't have a lot of information. But here are some of the questions that come to mind. And I'm not saying these questions haven't been answered yet. I'm not saying that law enforcement hasn't already asked these questions and already answered them and cleared them. I don't know. But what I'd want to know, first of all, is, if she was seen in the parking lot at 1 p.m., well, then who saw her? Who saw her? Or is this a situation where she disappeared and then they figured out she was missing and then they went checked some video camera or something? Or did somebody actually see her at 1 p.m. in the parking lot that day? That would be a question that I would have to ask if I was involved. Next, if you discover that this person was in the parking lot at the time that Vanessa was there, then the next question is, well, if you saw her, did you not see what direction she was going? Was she walking in a particular direction? Was she standing on the curb talking on her phone? Was she talking to somebody in a car? These are things we don't know. It only says, well, she was last seen in the parking lot. Well, that could mean, a whole host of different things. It just doesn't mean one thing. It could mean, as we've learned, it could mean a whole bunch of different things. Hello, Dan. Thanks for tuning in tonight. LaFord says she just got back from Fort Hood in December. It's out in the middle of nowhere. Her LaFord's kid was stationed there before he got deployed. Cherie says, sounds like she ran out to the parking lot on a lunch break. Carlene, were her personal items found left in her car? Well, the personal items that have been mentioned in the news articles, Carlene, are her wallet, her ID, her car keys, and her room keys, and they were all left behind. They were not in her car. Cherie, no, Carlene, they were in the armory room where she works. Carlene, thank you. LaFord, huge base. Michelle, very big base. Been there myself. So those are a couple questions. The next question is, can just anybody get onto the base? The only military experience I have at all going on to a military installation of any type was back in 1998, maybe 99, when I went to see a guy I knew from college. He was in the Marines by that time, and he was stationed at 29 Palms, the Marine base there, and I went down to see him. And I'm going to be honest with you, I remember being in his room in the barracks and all of that. I don't even remember how I got onto the base. I'm guessing that they had to look at my ID, or they let them know that I was going to be there. His name's Steve. That he was let them know that I was going to be there. I don't remember. It's just poof. It's 21 years ago now. So that's my only experience with that. And I don't even remember the experience for the most part. So, can just anybody get on there? If not, then that really narrows down the possible suspects, if we're going to think of it in those terms. And then I would also want to know, what has the roommate said about all of this? Let me read some very big base. Yeah, Michelle, we got lost on our way back, and all travel apps are useless. Michelle, okay, you're talking about the base. So once again, I've not been following this as closely as some of you have probably, but I have to agree with what Cherie says. Sounds like she ran out to the parking lot on a lunch break, because I start thinking of it in terms of, when are those situations when I have my phone, but I don't have my wallet, my keys, etc.? I can think of a few different reasons. Now, really, with where I live now, I take my keys with me anywhere I leave. I lock the door. But, other than that, maybe, she needed some privacy. Maybe she was on the phone and she wanted to go outside to talk to somebody on the phone privately. Maybe she just wanted to go for a walk during her break. Those are the kinds of situations I can see where she would leave her wallet, ID, and those other things behind and take her phone. Of course, our phones go with us everywhere these days. Yet the problem is, it's hard to understand a circumstance where she would have been abducted from a military base. I'm not saying it's impossible, but that certainly wouldn't be my first choice. I also probably don't think that she could just walk away. I'm going to take for granted that the base has been searched. I'm going to take for granted that there are video cameras on the base. I'm going to take for granted that there are other people on the base walking around that day who might have seen her, and all of these things. So, what it tells me is that she probably got into a car with somebody willingly. Now, the tough part about that is, if her ID was left behind, how exactly was she going to be able to get back on the base if she got in the car with somebody and left? Once again, if somebody's in the military, Cherie, I know you're a military mother. Michelle and some of LaFord, you obviously have a lot of experience in this area. But for me, the layman, guy who's never been in the military, it seems weird that she would leave without her ID and then be able to expect to get back on the base without it. Maybe somebody can correct me with that. Lily asked me, have you ever interviewed Megan Good, Lily, I've done an interview with Megan Good way back in November 2016. All you have to do is go to iTunes or Podomatic, Spotify. You will find the interview there. In fact, I was one of the first people to ever interview Megan Good. So the answer is yes. LaFord says maybe because we had a soldier with us. Okay. Full Metal says, I heard they're doing the security gates completely different than they used to because of coronavirus. We lived there 4 years. Man, a lot of people have connection to Fort Hood in this group. Wow. Okay. Um, Dan Sweep says, if they have a base sticker that is all guards, check. Well, then I guess what you're saying, Dan, is that if she left the base, then it had to have been somebody with a car that would have a sticker on it if they wanted to get back into the base. Since I do not believe she left in her own car. So this leads back to, it seems like she left the base, she left it in a car, and she left it in a car with somebody else who was on the base. That's what it sounds like to me being a layman when it comes to military issues. I of course thought of Trevor Nichols' disappearance, one that we covered back August, September of 2019, but even his is not really the same because everybody admits that the last place he was seen was not on the base. He was seen allegedly at a train station. Not that I necessarily believe that, but he was certainly seen outside the base before he disappeared, which to me is a totally different scenario than the one we're talking about with Vanessa's. With Vanessa's, I think it really, really limits the directions that we can go with our theorizing. Cherie says, then it seems like there would be 2 military people missing. Cherie, I can't deny that. And I think in so many words, you're kind of saying something that maybe something bad happened to Vanessa. Possible. Certainly possible, Cherie. LaFord, their ID is everything. Can't understand how she would have left without it. LaFord, we had a rental car, Dan. I just don't know. Maybe she was forced into a car on the base. Maybe that happened. Maybe she got into a car with somebody she knew and didn't realize that they were going, to be going off the base. But I agree with Cherie. Then wouldn't that mean that there would be some other soldier missing? That makes a lot of sense. Kathy says most women never leave their ID behind when away from home. And Collison's, I've heard a lot of things happen there where people go missing. Well, I don't know anything about that, Collison. We hear a lot of things about a lot of people going missing in a lot of different places, and then you go to Namus, and that's not necessarily the truth. Of course, there are many unsolved disappearances in the United States, way too many. In fact, there's so many they can't even put an accurate number on it. It's somewhere between 80 and 100,000. Going back, I guess, when we really want to get back to the creation of the country, there's still, that many unsolved disappearances. But I don't know what to make of, anybody that would say, well, there are a lot of people missing from Fort Hood. I think if that was the situation, I think that we would hear a lot more about it. If we hear about Vanessa, then why shouldn't we hear about all of these other soldiers or Marines or sailors, or what am I missing? Army, airmen, airwomen go missing. I think we would hear a lot more about that. I know that AWOLs happen and those things, but those don't qualify necessarily as disappearances. Dan, actually, one time I was mugged by 3 people on base and they never caught them. Once again, I don't have experience in this area. All I can say is it makes sense that they would have searched Fort Hood, within the confines of the fence there on the boundaries of the property. And I understand it's huge, and I guess they would have done that. Maybe something did happen and she was stuffed away on the property somewhere. I guess that's possible. That's not the way I'm leaning. but it's possible. Airman. There we go. There we go, Cherie. Thank you. Um, yeah, Full Metal says there's another soldier missing from there too. Missing 6 months. Gregory Morales, I think, is his name. A Full Metal. I've read about that, and that's certainly bad. But I don't know how you can connect somebody who went missing 6 months ago to, you know, especially when everybody here is telling me that it's a huge base. So, and we do know that, unfortunately, military members are more inclined to suffer from depression, PTSD, and military members are more likely to commit suicide, especially if they've seen action. So, we can't forget about those, those statistics either. Valerie says, I love Megan. I know I'm spelling her name wrong. Yeah, I'll forgive you, Valerie. Collison reported missing, and they said his phone pinged in. Oh, yeah. Carlene, Paul Pilates would have had a show about people missing in the military. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good one, Carlene. Good one. That's just how I view it. My opinion is that she's probably not on the base anymore. Do they call them bases, or it's actually a fort? Bases are right. Bases are for Marines. Forts are for soldiers, right? Bases are for Marines, and forts are for the Army. I sound like such a know nothing here. But I do not believe she's on that piece of property anymore. I'm inclined to believe that she did leave work on a break to go meet somebody out at their car, and something went on. Maybe she went AWOL. Maybe she said, I'm out of here. Could be. Then why would she take her phone? I don't know. And that's part of what we don't know. She seemingly had her phone with her since no reports say it's been found. So have they gotten her records? It's been 10 days. They surely could have done that. Have they pinged her phone? This is information that we don't have. And frankly, we don't have a lot of information, period. And that's the way it usually is with disappearances that are 10 days old. Now, if this goes for a year, then I would certainly love to, help the family. And I'm sure at that time, a year later, there will be a lot more information that I hope it gets solved tomorrow. And I hope that Vanessa's alive. I hope they find her alive, of course. But if this does go for a year or longer, then, we'll try to help them in any way we can. But I think what we'll find out is there's a lot of information that we'll find out a year from now that we don't know right now. Yes, Gregory Williams. Cherie says last ping was on the base. Well, so are we then to believe Cherie that she shut her phone off before she left the base? No, I'm not saying you're lying. I'm believing you. That's what it would next lead me to believe. But we just don't have a lot of information. It's a disappearance that's getting a lot of coverage, but you just don't know a lot of things. You don't know who the last person was that saw her. You don't know what, any of her friends have said about, anybody that she was dating or any problems she was having. We don't know any of that. I did read that she was maybe thinking about buying a car. There are certainly scams that go on with that. People get, say, hey, come look at my car. And when the person shows up, they get robbed. That's a common tactic of criminals. So maybe that's what went on here. She was looking at a car and somebody said, yeah, come by, pick you up. I'll take you to go see it. And something happened. Carlene says she may have had more than one phone. That's possible, Carlene. And you'd think that somebody who knew her well would know about that. Sheree says it's more tight-lipped because it's military, quote unquote. You might probably right about that, Sheree. On the other hand, if Vanessa Guillen was not a military member and she just was a missing woman in Texas, would her disappearance get all this attention? I don't know. Full Metal says that Full Metal doesn't think that Vanessa's disappearance is connected to Gregory's either. Okay. So that's really all I have to say about that. I just think that there's just too many missing pieces about, about who saw her, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We just don't know. Now, of course, another disappearance that was in the news was these two young women. They were a couple, Stephanie Mayorga and Paige Escalera. And they'd recently become engaged, and then they disappeared. And it seems within the last couple days, their car was found, and there were two bodies in it. Of course, the bodies are presumed to be Stephanie and Paige. From what I've read, it's been explained to be as a high speed crash, meaning they were on a road, the car left the road and really went far off the road. Because as I've read, I think after they disappeared, the police or whoever had gone down the road trying to find out if there were any guardrails damaged or anything. In fact, I read that somebody even called it in that somebody was on a road and there was a car behind them, and they saw the headlights leave the road. And then when police showed up, or ambulance or whatever, they looked and there was nothing there. But I think that is in the area where their car was found. What are we going to make of this? I don't know. I suppose we could think that it's just a simple car crash. Maybe who was ever driving was looking at her phone and trying to drive at the same time and kind of got off on the berm, overcorrected, going 60 miles an hour and just flew right off the road. Very possible. Maybe it could also be like what happened in California with those women who killed all their kids. Just suicide pact where they decided to drive right off that cliff. I guess that's possible too. Me personally, I'm leaning toward a car, just a simple car wreck. The truth is, we know, especially when it comes to young people, and really me as a 49-year-old using my phone when I drive. We know young people do use their phones when they drive. We do know that young people, there's a reason that young people's car insurance is so high. And these kinds of accidents happen. And if you go off the road in a particular area, then some cars are going to be hard to find. So right now, I don't think there's anything suspicious about this. I don't get the feeling that this was some sort of suicide pact. I think that, if they had chosen to do that, I think that they probably would have picked some place where it was more likely that they would actually die, like driving off an actual cliff or something, whereas it doesn't sound like this is the type of area that it was. I think this is just a bad luck car crash. That's what it feels like to me. And it's very sad. Too many kids die in cars. And being that I was a kid at one time and doing all sorts of stupid, illegal things in cars when I was late teens into my 20s, I look at that time and I like, how did I not ever get in a wreck? How did I never hit anybody else? How did I not kill anybody else? How did I not kill myself? So that's what that all feels like to me. Collison says, I've heard the 911 call and the guy wasn't, I don't know, from there. And he stayed on scene, but they couldn't see them. He said they ran a stop sign and was going very fast, like 100 miles an hour. Oh. Yep. Just that may be true. And it is. Do I think it's weird that they didn't see the car the first time around? Yeah. But I don't know. Cherie says driver had previously tried to commit suicide, so I don't know. Well, Cherie, let's hope this wasn't a situation where the driver decided she was going to commit suicide and take the other woman with her. Let's hope not. But yeah, maybe it could be wrong. It sounds like some of you know more about this than I do. And if it was a suicide of some type, then it's just, I don't know. I just don't know. It's very sad if it was, but But a lot of people try to commit suicide once and they never try again, and then they get in a car wreck and die. So, just don't know. Once again, Collison says the guy that called wasn't from there, and I think he stayed on the scene, but they couldn't see them. He said they ran a stop sign and was going very fast, like 100 miles an hour. Yeah. Well, mm, yeah, Sharia is saying, yes, we may never know. It very well could be that we never know. It may be that they swerved to miss a deer. Just don't know. Very sad, whatever the situation is. Um, Too many kids dying of suicide, too many kids dying in cars. Let's go to another question. This is a good one. And I appreciate Marcy asking me this. Since starting Unfound, has my view of humanity changed? Not really, Marcy. I am of the opinion. I think I've used this as a theme for a few episodes. I've written about it on the blog. I think I've talked about it here on this live show that I'm very cynical when it comes to human nature. Um, of course, humans are capable of some of the best things that can happen in this world. Um, the way that we use our minds to make the lives of others better, the way that we take care of animals that, we, of course, dogs and cats as pets. And there are people who devote their lives, humans who devote their lives to helping animals and everything that we do regarding that and helping our fellow man. It's the best that any animal does on the earth. On the other hand, humans do the worst things on the face of the earth too. There's a wide range in their dogs and cats and bears and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. They have a very small range of how they act. They can do a lot of nice things, but they can do a lot of bad things. But when it comes to humans, we can do really, 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 really great things, and we can do really, really, really bad things. And as I always like to point out, humans are the only animals, only living things that kill and hurt others for fun. Bears don't harm people for fun or other animals for fun. Lions and tigers don't hurt other animals for fun. Dogs don't bite people for fun. People torture other people and animals for fun. And that makes us capable of anything. So that is my view of human nature. It's the reason we have laws, because without laws, of course, the world would be a much more violent place. But being that we have that side of our mind that can rationalize this out, something that other animals don't have, that we realize that we have a violent nature, but we have found ways to work with our fellow humans and create systems and governments and communities where we know that by acting better, we make it better for us and everybody else. That's the way that we, can continue to exist. Because without that, if we only had the violent side and not the rational side, it would surely be a worse world than if humans didn't exist. If humans didn't exist and it was just all the rest of the animals, there would still be killing going on and everything, but it would because that's what animals do to eat, to survive, to defend themselves. Whereas if it was an earth with humans without our rational side in which we can communicate with others, man, that would be ugly. So my sense of human nature has not changed at all. I think that, as with anything, we have to try to just concentrate on those best parts of us. That and I am not one of these people who believes that humans are so much more, sophisticated and everything else now than they were 3,000 years ago. I'm not inclined to believe that at all. I think that we behave the same way that we did back then. The difference now is that we've progressed as far as technologically. We can, of course, because of medicine, we can live longer and everything, but our tendencies, our nature is still exactly the same as the first day that Homo sapiens populated the earth. Whether you believe in Adam and Eve or you believe in um, evolution or something else, whatever you want to believe in is fine by me. But I really believe that Homo sapiens have been the same since day one. It's only we've just changed everything around us. So no, my attitude toward human nature has not changed at all. But it's a great question. I love talking about that particular topic about humans and our nature and why we do the things that we do and how we get together with other humans to form governments and communities, which although like apes have their hierarchy, and I know people have studied these things, it's only humans that sit down and talk everything else and come up with laws and rights and everything else, which I find fascinating. Uh, One more thing before I get to Friday's episode. I want to talk about this Mexico video that I posted in the group. It comes from one of my favorite YouTube channels, Active Self Protection, and that is a channel hosted by a guy, John Correa. He specializes in self defense, and hand-to-hand combat and good gun ownership. And every day he has a video of a shootout or some sort of incident in a bar where there was a fight, and he kind of diagrams, what these people did wrong and what you can learn from it and how you can better protect yourself. And I think he does a fantastic job. Well, he showed this video of some Americans who were in Mexico. They drove into Mexico and they were coming up on a red light and there were a bunch of cars there. And, they're slowing down, figuring out, hey, was there a wreck? Did somebody get hit by a car? And they quickly figured out that the reason those cars were there is it was a roadblock. And it was a roadblock that got away. And in seeing that video, of course, I thought of Tammy Arthur and Chad Peters to a disappearance that we covered last year. And of course, the rumor was they disappeared in Mexico. And so, I don't know, something might have happened to the chat here, but I thought of them. Could that have been what happened to them, that they went into Mexico and made the mistake of stopping at a roadblock that looked innocent? Once again, if you watch the video and you don't know what's going to happen, if you don't know it's in Mexico, etc., then you're thinking, oh, if this was an intersection here in Pinellas County, Florida, oh, something must have happened. Somebody must have got hit by a car. That's why these cars are all stopped. Nope. In that situation, they were setting people up to rip them off. And maybe worse. So that's how quickly it could happen there. I'm not saying that doesn't happen in the United States. I'm sure that's been done a few times somewhere in the United States. But I guess what I'm saying is, if you watch that video thinking it's the United States, you think, well, this is no big deal. But it actually, if you run across that in Mexico, it probably is something that you want to stay away from. So I posted that in the group. I hope you will check it out. And if you're into that type of thing, like self-protection, and if you are a gun carrier, if you are have a job where you think you may need to know more about protecting yourself, then I would recommend John Correa's site, Active Self Protection on YouTube. I think it's a great channel. So let's get to this Friday. I've already set it up, telling you why it's happening this particular week. It was because of a think tank member. Her name's Tammy, who heard that the guest for this week flaked. So she said, "Why don't you interview all of your assistants?" So I did, except for one. Now, the reason Eric did not get interviewed is because he's already been on the program. He was on it about 3 years ago. He was the guest for the Donna Mikalenko uh, episode, and he and I had met not long before that. As I always mention, he and I went to the same college, although I graduated before he started at Grove City. And we're both from Western Pennsylvania, and I've had a chance to have lunch with him a couple times. But he is one of my assistants for the program. But being that he was already on the program once, had already been interviewed, had already gotten to talk about himself and his interest in missing persons cases, etc., I thought, well, he's had his chance. Let's give everybody else a chance. So now everybody can say they've been on the program once. So I interviewed Emily and Cherie on Monday. I interviewed Natasha, Carrie, and Heather yesterday. And so you are going to hear my interviews with all of my assistants this Friday. It's going to be a kind of a long episode, as you would probably imagine. But what we talk about is they talk about themselves, what goes on in their lives. We talk about how they first became interested in true crime, if that's actually something that happened. We talk about how they first heard about Unfound. Maybe their first, do they remember talking to me for the first time, through Messenger in the group or whatever. We talk about, and then we move on to how they became a part of the team on Unfound and what their responsibilities are, and what it's been like to see kind of behind the scenes of how all this happens. So they all did a great job, even though I think that they are somewhat nervous about how they came across. I can assure all of them that they did a fine job. And I'm really looking forward to all of you hearing from them. And then in the process of this episode, I also talk a little bit about myself and how in the past I have had problems working with people. The truth is, in the jobs that I've had in my life, I've always felt much more comfortable when I was working alone. I didn't have to answer to anybody. I didn't have to collaborate with anybody. And as you would probably predict, that got me, in some tight situations. And I kind of talk about that. And I also talk about, what has been different. Um, what is it about Unfound and doing this program where it's like the exact opposite, where I go to all of these people for advice. We talk about all sorts of different things, and they come up with a lot of great ideas that are now part of Unfound. For example, Cherie here in the show tonight, she was the person who came up with the idea for the think tank. So I talk a little bit about that and kind of a change that I've had, kind of probably in the last 10 years or something like that. So I hope you enjoy it. It's called The Team Episode. And like I said, it's going to be a little long on Friday, but you're going to get to hear from Emily, Cherie, Carrie, Heather, and Natasha in that order. And that's about it. I think that the chat has gotten disconnected or something like that. So I don't know what happened there. But and I'm thinking we are surely going to have a disappearance next week, because I have an interview scheduled for tomorrow night after my interview with Dr. Telesco. And I believe that this mother of him is very eager to come on the program. We've had a lot of great conversations, and I actually exchanged texts with her today, and she assures me she's really looking forward to doing the interview. So we will surely get back to disappearances next Friday. And the thing is, the last couple of weeks, they kind of went the way they were supposed to go anyway. I knew that I was going to be doing an in memoriam for Austin Pivo, and I knew I was going to be doing the Q&A episode. So really the only week that we've missed regarding a disappearance is this one. And it's because somebody flaked. So, what do we do? It's been beautiful here. I talked about the Austin Pivo poll. Dr. Grace Telesco, remember, tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the Fischler College of Education and School of Criminal Justice Facebook page, 6 p.m. Eastern, Facebook Live. Saturday, the game show on the Lord and Arts channel, 9 p.m. Eastern. Not on this YouTube channel, not on Unfound's YouTube channel, on the Lord and Arts channel. Talked about patent trolls, talked about flakes, talked about the Mexico video, talked about how we're back on Twitter, talked about Vanessa Guillen disappearing from Fort Hood. We talked about the two girls who were missing, it seems their car with two bodies in it has been found in North Carolina. Took some questions from all of you and finished up with this Friday's episode, the team episode, where I interview all of my assistants except Eric. Good night, everyone. I know it seems like the chat is down. I don't know what to tell you, but thank you all for tuning in tonight, and you'll hear me Friday along with all of my assistants. I can't wait. Good night.